like I said, welcome everybody to another installment of the Sports Rap Podcast right here on Heat 100 Radio. So you know where we are again, live each and every Monday. Sports Rap Podcast LLC is the group page on Facebook. Also doing some IG live at sportsrap_D. So wherever you are, whatever your T is, whatever your choice is, this is where you know where to be, you know where to get to. So just get there and tune in because you know what goes down today. We got plenty of talk to do today. Got plenty of Eagles talk. Plenty Eagles talk today, like I said. And listen, we also have a guest caller that's going to be calling in today. So you'll have to stay tuned for that. So you know what we're going to get to. You know what we got to get to. Let's see. My first guest, Poppy Chulo _Dread Dead #1. Thanks for tuning in on the IG Live. Appreciate you. Tell a friend to come on back. Listen to some of the talk. Also, I got one viewer on Facebook. And again, on Facebook, since I'm doing something new this time, these go rounds. I'm doing a little bit of IG Live and a little bit of Facebook Live simultaneously. So what you need to do, if you're on Facebook, when you comment or if you're here, just shoot me a message and let me know. If you're here and you don't want to comment, just shoot me a message and let me know who you are, that you're tuned in. You can get your acknowledgments like I always do every week. Also, if you comment, you know what to do. My guy, Rich, I know you're tuned in, so I'm waiting for you to start. Lowell, Rich, you guys know what to do. But anybody that doesn't know what to do, if you're on Facebook and you want to leave a comment or you leave a comment, please add your name into the comment so I can acknowledge you so I'll know who you are. All right, thank you all for that. Appreciate that. Before I get started, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take these headphones off for a second. I'm going to take my hat off for a second. And we all know the tragic story that happened not that long ago, a few days ago. And Mr. Tyree, I think his last name is Nichols. We all know that situation. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail about that situation, but the basics, another African-American male lost his life to the hands of law enforcement. Extremely unfortunate this go round that these law enforcement members or officers were also African-American. So what I want to do real quick, I'm going to take a moment of silence for Mr. Tyree Nichols and his family. Thank you all for that. So now we can get back into it. Like I said, that's an unfortunate situation. Very, very unfortunate situation. But unfortunately, it is the state that we are in. But we need to try and do some things to combat that and get around that, start to alleviate and eliminate some of those issues. But nonetheless, we got some news and some updates to get to real quick. And we're going to get to some scores, and then we're going to get right into our Eagles talk, our NFL talk. And when we talk NFL talk, we have to talk both games. Championship Sunday was yesterday. So I know I have a lot of Eagles talk to get to. But I cannot forget about doing my due diligence and doing my job and talking about the AFC game, which was actually turned out to be a fairly good game. But we'll talk about that in a few. So the Carolina Panthers hired Frank Reich as their next head coach. Dana Brown has been hired as the new GM of the Astros. He is now the only black GM in the majors. The NFL Players Coalition has a new $15 million grant. The Jets named Nathaniel Hackett as their next offensive coordinator. The Dallas Cowboys, in the wake of their playoff debacle, have fired 5 assistant coaches in the wake of their playoff disaster. The running back coach, Skip Peete, the linebacker coach, George Edwards, the assistant head coach, Rob Davis, defensive line coach, Leon Lett, and offensive line coach, Joe Philbin. I saw this morning that they have also, with Kellen Moore, mutually have agreed to part ways. The Rams are set to hire LaFleur as their new offensive coordinator. The Miami Dolphins fire offensive coordinator Josh Gaddis after one season. Candace Parker announces that she will sign with the Aces. The NBA fined Joel Embiid for his celebration against the Nets last week. The Cowboys, I told you that. DeMeco Ryans is now reportedly in line to become the next head coach of the Houston Texans. The Phillies signed Josh Harrison in a 1-year deal. Let's see. We got some people here. My classmate, Laveda English, thank you for tuning in as well on Instagram. Appreciate you. Go Birds. I saw you with your support on social media, so that's what we hear. Go Birds. What am I forgetting, folks? Nothing much here. Okay. Let's see. To this Super Bowl coming up will be the first Super Bowl where there will be 2 African American starting quarterbacks. There will be the first time that brothers will be facing off against each other. The Kelsey brothers, Travis Kelsey for the Chiefs and Jason Kelsey, our anchor and our guy for the Philadelphia Eagles. Also, if you are a basketball fan, I know a lot of you are. If you are a true historian of the game, if you have a true love of the game, Vade, love you too, classmate, love you too, love you back. What was that? Yeah. If you are a true basketball head, basketball lover, basketball aficionado, whatever adjective you would like to use, coming up February the 3rd, which is coming this Friday actually, on Showtime, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf's documentary Stand. Should be a very good one. If you don't know the story, then you really need to make sure that you watch this on Showtime on the 3rd. All right. If you know the story, watch it. It'll bring back some memories, and it'll give you a little bit of a little more in-depth insight of what actually happened in his situation with his career and how his career played out. Unfortunately, it was not the way that he wanted it to. Also, I can go a little bit on a limb and say, for some true basketball fans, we got cheated from his career going the way that it went, and us not seeing more of Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. So, again, check that out. Like I said, if you're a basketball head, you know what to do. Check that out. Showtime this Friday, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf documentary titled Stand. Make sure you check that out. And then next week, we'll be back and we'll have some views on it next week when we come back live. Some scores for you. Yesterday in the NBA, the Hornets get by the Heat 122-117. The Grizzlies get by the Pacers 112-100. The Clippers fall to the Cavs 122-99. The Bucks get by the Pelicans 135-110. In the NHL, the Bruins fall to the Hurricanes 4-1, and the Maple Leafs get by the Capitals 5-1. So, you know what's next up on the slate. It's early in the show. I'll have some schedules for you, some Monday night games in the NHL and some Monday night games in the NBA, and I'll get those to you, before we close out tonight. So, you know where we're going next. My guy Richard is in the building. Well, that's what we always say, but we know he's here. So, Rich, you come just in time. And it is that time. Like I said, you see me still representing. I have on my Eagles hat. I am in, all the way in. Just like Fat Joe said, all the way up. The city yesterday was all the way up. So, like, if you go and you check out my post from yesterday, you see I somewhat strategically tried to paint you the visual picture of my day yesterday. And I went from the beginning to where I was, and then ultimately how my day pretty much ended. To say the least, a great ending, if you will, to a great day. First and foremost, shout outs to my guy, Chuck Bolger, and his crew, the F2 crew, who, with all the shenanigans yesterday down there, like the Villanova game and whatever the nonsense was they did with the parking lots, my guys, the F2 crew, got moved across the street to the P lot next to Citizens Bank Park. But nonetheless, they still rocked out and did what they did, invited me down as always, and I had a great time as always as well. So shout outs to Chuck, my guy Mike, everybody else down there with the F2 crew, as yesterday, the P-Lot crew. And I'm going to change that. The crew that moved to that other lot. Let's go there, because that the way I just said it the first time didn't sound right. So shout outs to the F2 crew. Although they got moved, they still the F2 crew. Thanks for them having me down there celebrating with them. And like I said, if you go back to my stuff, the Instagram, you know where, and you can in the Facebook, you can see my posts. And like I said, a great day from the start, and ended even greater, if you will. We all know yesterday was Championship Sunday, and because I live in this city, I'm going to do my due diligence. Like I said, I'm still repping with my hat on. But in order to get this and do this right, I have to talk a little bit about the second game yesterday, the AFC Championship. A rematch of sorts. Kansas City Chiefs, Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals, by beating Buffalo, and because of backtracking to that whole unfortunate situation with Damar Hamlin and that game being unable to be concluded, there was talk about if this team won, whatever, it would be a neutral site to play. To avoid all that, in the rematch in the playoffs after the regular season, the Cincinnati Bengals go into Buffalo and beat the Buffalo Bills in their house, in their building. And they take care of them and move on to the AFC Championship yesterday. And they have to go into Arrowhead. And there was a lot of trash talk. Burrowhead was what they were dubbing the stadium because they had went in there and beaten them before. I think, I love the confidence level of all these guys. It doesn't bother, like this talk here doesn't bother me. I think I take it in stride. I believe that it's all part of the game. And, I just feel like when you talk, you better be able to back it up. And then when you can't back it up, you can't be upset or disturbed when it gets back at you with everything you get back from that by not showing up or not proving what you talked about. So they went in there, with a high level of confidence. Like I said, you beat the Bills in their building. And you turned your season around at the very end of the season. So you got hot at the right time. Absolutely. No question about it. In order to put yourselves back in the position where you were last year. And one of the things I think happened yesterday, and you kind of have to look at the whole situation. With their confidence level being what it was, the way they ended the season, the way they went into Buffalo and won that game. And then you get the reports, you saw the game, you saw that Mahomes is a little banged up, a little dinged up. So you figure like that gives your confidence a little bit more of a boost going in. Cocky, you could say, yes. Confident, definitely. But, it's one of those things where when you go in that way, you go into this hostile environment, and I know you've been there before, you won there before, but like we always say, it's very tough to beat a team twice. Very tough to beat a team in their own building 2 times. So it's tough. But they made a game of it, if you will. The final score was 23-20. Same score when it was reversed. Not same score, but same amount of points maybe. Probably probably not the same exact numbers, but it was a 3-point difference when it was the other way around as well. So these teams play each other, and they go at it. Just like we saw the Bills and the Chiefs go at it last year in that playoff game, or in the Kansas City playoff game. But with that game, you felt the urgency. You felt the wanting to prove a point from that Kansas City sideline. You felt this is what y'all gonna say? So we gonna shut y'all up. We gonna tell y'all, we gonna show y'all what happens when you come in here and talking crazy like that. And even with the way that game played out, like you would think, you would have thought, looking at it, the way trash talk, so I said, the way it played out in the media and the trash talk and everything, you would have thought that Kansas City would have tried to come out and really put something on them. Obviously, it was somewhat of a defensive game because the score was just 23-20. Came down to a late field goal for the win. Also would have been in overtime. And speaking of that going into overtime, you look at that late game situation, which, in my opinion, really, really hurt. Yeah, they did get some calls, Rich. They definitely did. But they still had a chance until that last play. That last play with Osai and that unnecessary roughness, personal foul call, they were arguably out of field goal range. That would have made that decision that much tougher. They might have had to, I don't remember what the timeout situation was at that point, but they might have had to use the timeout. If you don't get that penalty, they might have had to use the timeout, although he did run out of bounds, so that did stop the clock. But all in all, still, it's a possibility that they may have had to use that timeout to really think about their decision, whether they wanted to kick this extended field goal or whether they wanted to play into overtime. Yeah, it was a whole, and we can say, like a lot of people have recently been saying, there's holding on every play. But I get what you're saying. I'm sure that's Rich. I get what you're saying. That one there was blatant. And it could have changed. So now we've got two instances that could have changed the game, and now we've seen that one definitely did. The holding penalty, if it had been called, could have changed, and again, moved them out of field goal range, where they would have possibly had to play for the overtime under the new rules. But to make a play like that in that type of game is, I don't know how to call it, but it's mind-boggling. You have to be aware, of the situation. You could have pushed them out of field goal range and possibly gotten the ball back. And again, like I said, I don't remember the timeout situation. I don't remember the exact time. But you could have gotten the ball back without them kicking the field goal with any points, with them winning. And you could have sent this game into overtime and given yourself another solid chance where there would have been no pressure. Rich, I just missed that comment that you just put up. But yeah, I think you said 45 field goal would have been extended to like a 60-yarder. And again, like I said, and I think that's what you said, Rich. But yeah, that just proves my point again. And it makes that field goal that much harder. And it would have made Kansas City and Andy Reid really, really think hard on that decision about what they would have wanted to do. I personally don't think they would have wanted to try a 60-yard field goal. I think at that point they would have settled and went in to play for overtime, tied up, coin flip, get the ball, and see what happens. And like I said, with the new overtime rule, each team gets a possession with the ball, whether they score a touchdown or whatever. It used to be if you score a field goal, you get the ball. If you don't, if you score a touchdown, the game is over. Now, whatever you score, who gets the ball first, if you score whatever you score, the other team definitely gets a possession. So each team will definitely, no matter what, get a possession in the overtime. And you can take your chances there. Okay? And you get into that overtime period, and then you can continue with your game plan. You don't have to be pressed and try and shorten your playbook, your playlist, and try to find. Then you start scrambling, looking for like your best plays, your optimum plays to get you optimum yardage on each single play. You look for plays that will give you an advantage at some position in some way, and this is both sides of the ball. But this is when you get to that point when it's that late rush, that minute and a half, 2 minute rush down, 3 minutes when you're down, and it was a tie game. So at that point, you can work your book, you can work your playbook, you can work your playlist. If you score, you score. If you don't, you don't. You live another day, you fight, and you play in the overtime. But again, the mental aspect also has to be there. That play at the end of that game yesterday was the play that sealed their fate. People may not want to admit it completely or solely, but I will. It sealed their fate. And like I say, if you don't get that penalty, you push them out of field goal range, arguably. You force them to make a tough decision. Do they want to try this 60-yarder, 60-plus yarder, or do they want to just go into overtime and work it out? And then if you let it go into overtime, you on the other side also have a solid chance where you can again continue with your game plan, your MO, your playbook, and try and get you some points and go and win the game. But it didn't work out that way. Ultimately, it came down to that play. They kicked the field goal. They win the game. Chiefs advance to the Super Bowl again with the 23-20 win over the Cincinnati Bengals, and they advanced to play Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl. 2 weeks. So, now that that's out of the way, got that out of the way, that's good. Congratulations to the Chiefs. Congratulations to Andy Reid, Big Red, Patrick Mahomes, yada, yada, yada. Good luck, whatever. We move into our Eagles talk. Had to give them some applause for their game yesterday. Right now, currently in the playoffs, the Eagles have so far in 2 games outscored their opponents 69-14. I brought it up when I saw the post. I brought it up a couple of times on social media. I chimed in on when some other people brought it up on social media. And then you know what it was. There was a picture of some of the 49ers fans. They came in and they made a mockery of the Rocky statue. Put the T-shirt on the statue. And one of the first things I said was, you guys did not get the memo. You did not pay attention and see what happened to the last 2 teams that defaced the Rocky statue. Super Bowl year 2017-18, Minnesota Vikings came in and tried to do it. Didn't work well for them. They came in, charged up. Won first drive, scored 7 points. Didn't score again. Lost that game 38-7. Eagles ended up going back to their home building and playing a Super Bowl in their building after beating them in the weeks before that. The second team this past season, divisional round, New York Giants, riding their wave, beating Tampa Bay. Like, really? Like, I really, in some ways, I feel like the NFL should tweak their playoff seedings and things of that nature. But I know it'll be tough because you have to have a certain number of teams and all that kind of jazz. It has to be done. Good morning, good people. Who was that just chimed in on Facebook? Please let me know who you are so I can acknowledge anybody else that's tuned in on Facebook. I see it says 3 people are tuned in. The 3 people that are there, please let me know who you are. Where was I? The Giants came in. Okay, Nate, thank you, brother. Good morning to you. The second team, the Giants, they tried it, and it didn't bode well for them either. They ended up losing 38-7 this year in the divisional round. 49ers fans, hype. And I think out of the 3 instances, I think the 49ers fans would get my vote as the most hype, or we could say the most pre-hype. They had a guy on social media made a little rap song about the Eagles, and he's eating crow right now. You had the 49ers fans riding their wave as well. And again, this is not me poking. I'm just giving you what I've seen, my analyzation of this entire situation. It didn't work out well for them either. They end up losing yesterday 31-7. So we talk about the chatter back and forth. And again, like I said, I'm a fan of it. As long as it doesn't get disrespectful. But one of the things I also said about these teams and them doing some things to the Rocky statue, and I mentioned this to one of the guys at the tailgate yesterday. He was like, wow, I never thought about it that way. I said to him, one of the things that some people may not understand or may not realize is that if you are a born and bred Philadelphian, Rocky, we all know it's a movie. It was a series, we know. But the first Rocky movie identified and placed in front of the eyes of the world some of the most iconic sections, places, buildings, whatever, that this city has to offer. So if you are a born and bred Philadelphian, although deep down inside we know it's a movie, he is a fictional character, there's a statue of him here, for God's sakes. If you are a born and bred Philadelphian, sports teams aside, anything else aside, just a born and bred Philadelphian, Rocky is a Philadelphia staple, a Philadelphia icon. And again, like I said, deep down inside, all of us Philadelphians know situation. We know it's more than that because we live here. Who was that just said facts? Was that Rich or was that Nate? Again, on the outside looking in, it's just a fictional character. It's a fictional movie. You can argue that it's a great story, but all of the Rocky movies have had some great impacts on the city. And I mean, and I say, like I mentioned, like that first movie, there's always something significant about the city that's in this Rocky movie. And again, like I said, that very first Rocky movie was like the perfect one. And this is where I feel like Rocky became a Philadelphian. I mean, like I said, he's got a statue, for God's sakes. So again, if you're in the city, lived in the city, born and bred, Rocky is part of Philadelphia. On the outside looking in, it's just a fictional character. It's a movie to you. So you choose, yeah, that must be Frank. That was a low blow. That's either Frank or Baldy, I believe, that just said that was a low blow because I'm a Niners fan. So let me know which one of you it is. And again, shout out to my guys as well. Like I said, they're 49ers fans, so I was technically outnumbered. Baldy and Frank both are 49ers fans. And some of the things we're going to talk about in a few, Frank may not like it. Okay, Frank, good to see you tuned in. He may not like it, but some of the things that I mentioned to him, and I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to break some of this stuff down. And there are also some things that I can see that I can break down on the Eagles side of the ball too. But, we'll definitely get into that and talk about that. And that situation, like you said, it didn't bode well for the first two teams that did it. So you kind of thought maybe this team would have been a little bit smarter and didn't do it. But They were riding that wave. And like I said, I'm going to call a spade, and I always give credit where credit is due. Anybody that tunes in, my two guys, if they're tuned in, they will definitely let you know. Richard says, Rocky became a fictional hero, but he was representing the working class and never give up attitude to the city. Absolutely. And that's why I said, Rich, what I said to the guy yesterday. I said, for us in this city, Rocky is Philadelphia. For anybody outside, it's just that. It's just that fictional character. And like you just explained it as well, for us, we deep down inside know he's a fictional character, but he was the epitome of Philadelphia. And like I said, in that very first Rocky movie, the city of Philadelphia was basically presented to the world on the big screen. It was. And so that's why I say what I say about Philly and Rocky. And you deface the statue, it doesn't bode well for you. But anyway, the 49ers had a kind of a roller coaster season, if you will. Well, it was a small roller coaster. It wasn't a big, small roller coaster, but it was a small roller coaster. And we talked about this, the underdog mentality, absolutely. We talked about this way back when, before the season started. We talked about it when the first initial injury of Trey Lance. And just for me to give you the backdrop, Rocky symbolizes Philly. Yeah, he does. I think that was Frank again. Now, Frank was here and we talked about it, and we talked about that injury to Trey Lance. And it was a good thing that they brought Jimmy G back. Like I said, I'm not a 49ers fan, but I'm going to call, like I say, I'm going to give credit where credit is due. I'm going to call a spade a spade. And I've always done this. But I've always said that I was never really sold on Jimmy G. I've always said that. I've been saying that for a long time. Even when he was with the Patriots, I've said that a long time, a lot. I also mentioned that, that coach, Kyle Shanahan, does his best work. He is a great coach, in my opinion, because with his quarterback situations, he makes the game simple for them, where he never really has to rely on his quarterback's arm or his quarterback's legs, if he had a mobile quarterback, to actually win him a game. So I do give credit, like I said, I give him definitely a lot of credit for that. So that was one of the things I said about Jimmy G. Like I said, I wasn't sold. I felt like the coach made things simple for him. Then there was the injury. And Frank, in the beginning of the season, before he started, it was Trey Lance. They wanted to go with the mobile quarterback, yada, yada, yada. And, I got that. I understood it, and I understand it. That's where the league is going. And if you have one in your stable, you have to see what you have in him. Unfortunately, he got injured. And what I also said was that when he comes back, his game is going to change. And I didn't mean it in a way to saying that he's going to fall off. I meant it in a way as just the physical nature and seeing what I've seen. He was a mobile quarterback. The injury that he had was a knee injury, a serious knee injury. He's not going to be the same. He still may be able to do some of the things that he did before, but it's not going to be at the velocity that it was before the injury. That was basically what I was saying. Then Jimmy G comes back, and Jimmy G gets hurt again. So now you're on to your third string quarterback. Last pick of the draft, what we call Mr. Irrelevant. Again, I talked about it a couple times on the air. Brock Purdy showed me some things in the winning stretch. I think he won like 7 or 8 games straight, maybe more, whatever. But he showed me some things. And then I also went back and looked at some of those games before I brought stuff to the show. And I said to myself, exactly what I had said about I Money 1587 joined. Thanks for tuning in on IG, brother. Appreciate you. I also said that, again, giving credit where credit is due. My guy, Jen, thanks for tuning in, good brother. Jen, I'm down a game tonight, but I'll hit you up later on when I get out of here. We can talk about that, whatever. I'll hit you up, though. Getting to that situation, let's see. Karina 7709. Thanks for joining in on IG Live. Appreciate all the love on IG Live. I gotta write these names down so I can remember these people. Money 1587. My guy Jen, Karina 7709. Okay. Well, you follow me. Make sure you follow. It's L. Yeah, okay. Well, man, just hit me up. You know where I'm at. You got this. Just hit me up. Message me, and we can talk about that. We can make something happen. Where was I? Oh, and talking about the situation again, and I said to them, like, Brock Purdy, again, I give credit where credit is due. The coach, again, Kyle Shanahan, did some things that I've always said to make the game easier for his quarterback. Make his quarterback comfortable. And again, I've said it in a lot of different instances when we talked about some other sports. I said, this is, in my opinion, what a coach is supposed to do. Before we talked about quarterbacks and we talked about schemes and this guy fitting this game, we went through that whole scenario in a way here when we had Chip Kelly. He came in, he caught the league by storm. Then he decided he finagled his way into getting a lot of power that next year, and then he decided, okay, I need this player for my scheme. It doesn't always work that way. You see the transition between the Eagles last year and this year, and I'm going to get to that in a little bit. But again, while we're here, we can talk San Fran. You see how that transition went. The coach made the scheme fit the talents of his quarterback. That's why they had success. And again, I'm not taking anything taking away from Brock Purdy. He played well. He was put in a position to succeed, and he succeeded. Now, as we progress, we get to the playoffs. They face Dallas. Okay. As I talked about that game, as I recapped that game on air, I mentioned that I saw some things. I saw some kinks in the armor. Again, we all knew what Dallas was. We knew at some point Dallas was going to have a letdown. It's what they do. It's been their MO for the past several years. But some of the things I saw early in that game from that Dallas defense, which was actually okay, it was actually pretty good when they were playing, they got a lot of pressure on Brock Purdy early. And he looked a little pedestrian, if you will, under that pressure. First thing I jotted down, making notes for my content. First thing I noted was that Dallas's defensive line is not the Eagles' defensive line. The Eagles, in reality, the way that they're set up on the defensive line, have two starting caliber defensive lines, and some of these guys are rotational players. Defensive line was already solid from the beginning. We had that one game early in the season, the Washington, that first loss, okay, where they ran the ball unequivocally very well against us, okay. Immediately, there was a move and we bring in Linval Joseph. And we make a trade, we get Robert Quinn in there somewhere too. Robert Quinn might have been right before the season started, but then you get Linval Joseph. Then you look up a week or two later and they're bringing in Ndamukong Suh. So you add that in with Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, the rookie Jordan Davis, Hargrave, Josh Sweat. And again, like I said, you add Hassan Reddick on that edge. You got two starting caliber defensive lines. So again, where a lot of teams have defensive lines that are stout and then they have a little bit of a lack off on that second unit, you don't really have that with the Eagles' defensive line. So we go back and we talk about the 49ers again. And again, I didn't think that this game was going to be a blowout. I thought it was going to be a close game even before I got wind of the opening 2.5-point spread, which the Eagles were favorites. But you had to take into consideration everything that you had seen coming up to this game from the 49ers, the play of the 49ers. You had to see it. Howie should be the GM of the year, no doubt. There's no doubt he should be deep. And like I said, with the power move on trade, not on draft night, to make that move and get A.J. Brown, the signings that you made, you got that steal where you host the Saints and you bring in C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who actually led the league in interceptions. Pick up a James Bradbury. Now you got 2 shutdown corners. I mean, it is what it is, But back to the 49ers thing, and, they were first in a lot of major categories. Offensive side of the ball, defensive side of the ball. One of the things that I also made note of is I remembered that first Dallas game when Jalen Hurts played and how Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen attacked Micah Parsons. So when you do that, in a lot of instances, you somewhat cancel out that particular impactful player. I think their scheme was a little bit of that yesterday, and it worked. Bosa didn't really have a major impact. There were a couple of plays where Bosa looked pedestrian because of his decision making. And if I got any 49ers fans that want to chime in and disagree with that, you can, or you can agree with it, please feel free. Instagram at SportsRap_D. Facebook, SportsRap Podcast LLC is the group page. On live, heat100radio.com. If you got tuned in, you can get there, but get over to Facebook or Instagram and chime in if you need to chime in. Or better yet, you could call in 215-287-1672 and holler at your boy. So, again, the game got to the point where before it was even over, you kind of knew it was over. And getting back to what I was saying, like I said, I saw some things in the Army. So you got that pressure on Brock Purdy, the Dallas did, but then they kind of got worn out. The Eagles team was supposed to be number 1 defense against the run. The Eagles rushed. Every touchdown that they scored yesterday was a rushing touchdown on the ground. So I do give them credit. They played pretty good in the passing game. So they definitely had a legit game plan for the passing game. And you better had, because if you didn't, it would have been possibly even worse than the score was. So they, again, like I said, I think they had a decent game plan for the passing game, which they pretty much succeeded at. But the run game, and then the frustration set in. When you got down to the possibility of having an emergency quarterback, made the Eagles situation that much greater. Because now we know you can't throw the ball. Josh Johnson came in and tried, but he had never been thrust into that situation, that type of game situation, the way that game was playing out when he got put in. He never expected that. And then ultimately he got knocked out with the concussion, Hassan Reddick. Now you're basically at your emergency quarterback, and you can't get that right. You realize that they were overall number 1, San Fran, but inside the red zone, giving up TDs, they were 21st. Yeah. So you get to the point where you could possibly be looking at your emergency quarterback, which ends up being Christian McCaffrey, which is also one of your star players that you figure that you might need to try and get going in this game, especially at the point after he scored that touchdown. It was a decent play. I give him all the credit for doing what he was supposed to do, not giving up on the play. When I looked at it second, third, fourth time on replays, horrible tackling by the Eagles on that play. Horrible tackling. He should have been stopped for a loss, but very poor tackling. But nonetheless, he got the touchdown. Like I said, I applaud him because he did what he was supposed to do. You, my guy, thanks for tuning in, brother. So they were first in a lot of categories. Eagles came out with a game plan, and they executed that game plan. Then they began to run the ball. And then, like I said, you flipped on the other side. That defense was one of the things that I said about Brock Purdy. And a lot of the chatter was very easy and very simple. Oh, he's due for a bad game. You know, he's been riding his wave. A bad game is coming. And then again, necessarily you can't say that yesterday was a bad game. You can say it was unfortunate. But this is what happens in football. Safety should have checked him for a 4-yard gain and then more. Yeah, Rich, that should have been a 4-yard loss. It should have been a loss, actually, too, instead of a 4-yard gain. So you got that situation, and they really got put in the hole. Like I said, that situation, it was a football move. There was no flag on it. It was a football move. Unfortunately, the elbow got injured. And you know, people, a lot goes on with that elbow. You need them nerves in there, them tendons to help with your grip. And he immediately went over to the sideline and he was like, yo, I can't do it. Brett Flanagan, 1963. Thank you for tuning in. My guy, Yusuf. Yusuf Njai. You know, somebody got to do it. My guy, go check him out. Somebody's got to do it. Purdy, once he got hurt, 49ers game plan went out the window. Yeah. Listen, Rich, like I said, and I agree with you, it went out the window, and that's part because I don't think they ever expected to even have to get to Josh Johnson. I think they underestimated the Eagles' defense. And again, the defense yesterday was back to 100% healthy. So I think they underestimated the Eagles' defense in the sense that they were confident enough and felt that we got Christian McCaffrey, we got Debo, and we got Kittle. They can't take all of them away. So you're kind of like battling wits here because the Eagles can easily have said the same thing. We got Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders, A.J. Brown, and Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. So they're outnumbered there already. What are you going to do? You can't shut down everybody. But inside the 49ers situation, they got to the point where once he got hurt, and then once Josh Johnson got hurt, then you're at that situation where you have to make a decision. And you could have went Wildcat, but your Wildcat playbook is not that in-depth. It's very short. If you had to do that, of course, Christian McCaffrey would have been the emergency quarterback. Hasn't thrown the ball much, but then that takes away another one of your weapons on the outside. Problem with 49ers, they had a tight end blocking Reddick, which is completely ridiculous. Absolutely. You know, you've seen the tape all season long. You can't just block him with one tight end. It's not going to work. It's not going to bode well for you, and it showed yesterday. So, again, then the penalties start to come in. So the frustration comes in when a lot of the talk that was being talked about, how do the Eagles combat this speed? How do they do this? And how do they do that? They showed you yesterday how they do it. So now, in this 49er situation, the frustration begins to kick in now. Where you, on the 49ers side of the ball, you feel like, yo, we've been doing this all year. It's like, this ain't, no, it's a football team, but we've been doing this all year. Why is this not working? Because you've got guys that did their homework. You've got, like I said, I saw some kinks in the armor. I saw. And again, I said the Eagles looked like they saw some things too, and they came out and exploited the things that they did. Of course, they took a couple shots down the field where they knew in certain situations that they would have an advantage possibly. You saw the Eagles' offensive line got the push on the 49ers in the run game. Absolutely. A couple of those passes were overthrown. One couple were defended very well. But you still had to take those shots. And that helped in the running game. Like I said, all the touchdowns the Eagles scored yesterday were off on the ground. Proving a point. And I think the Eagles put the world on notice that it's not a fluke. It's legit. Jalen Hurts also, in his humble way, has put the football world on notice how important he is to this team, how important he is in this entire situation, and should be at the very top of the list for the MVP of the league. But we'll see what happens with that. The Eagles have given me a feeling that this is the year again. It's one of those things where you don't feel it a lot. And I mean, even if you have a team that is successful, very successful, this type of feeling that I'm getting from this team, you have to give all the credit to Lane Johnson for showing, even with the torn stomach muscle, how dominant he really is. Absolutely, Rich. The guy hasn't given up a sack in, 3-4 years? And he's playing injured. Arguably, a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year made him a basic non-factor. Absolutely. But they have given me this feeling. And like I said, I had a feeling when they won it 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I had that feeling then. But this feeling is a little bit different. It's a little bit stronger. Because you've got your starting quarterback who is now going to finish out the season for you. He got them couple games he was out. That was regular season, but now he's back in the playoffs where he should be. So you've got your main guys doing it. And no disrespect to Nick Foles. He did what he had to do. Whatever. A lot of similarities. At that particular time, Carson Wentz looked like he could have been the runaway MVP. This year, it looks like Jalen Hurts has a very, very good chance. I won't say runaway, but a very, very good chance of being the MVP. This offense, collectively, in my opinion, better than that offense. Yeah, Vay, it's there. You definitely know it's there. You feel it. Like I said, immediately, like after that game yesterday, when the city was like, Broad Street was like fully packed from South Philly to North Philly, and even up in the Northeast. You felt it. Like that first drive yesterday, first sack yesterday by Hassan Reddick. Oh yeah, the market value for him is $265 million. That's the market value. So we'll see what happens with that with him, Vay. But again, that energy, that feeling, it's a little different, but it's a little different in a really good way. I think this offense is better. Yeah, Wow is right. I think the defense is definitely better. And I've always been one to say that the defense, I felt like, always kept us in a lot of games and carried us through a lot. This defense, this particular time around, I think is better. I think the offensive line, a lot of the similar parts, but I think is better. I think there's a focus here now where this group knows what they can do, but they don't look past that. They go out and do what they're supposed to do on any given Sunday. And if they continue to do that, one more, they'll be Super Bowl champs again. Folks, it's 11:55. I'm going to take my first break. When I come back, we're going to pick this up again. We're going to go through some stats real quick from yesterday because, again, like we can arguably say the game wasn't the greatest. Yeah, you might have to. You definitely might have to do that. We're going to finish up a little bit more Eagles talk. We're going to talk about the Eagles side of the ball. Like I said, we also got to get to some things that I said that could possibly change as far as coaching staffs and things of that nature for both teams. We'll get to that on the other side, and we'll get to some stats, and we'll get to some Eagles breakdown on the other side. Folks, you are tuned in to Sports Rap right here on Heat100Radio.com. See you on the other side. Just a couple seconds.